Hey YouTube, BR101255. This is a video response, and this is going to seem kind of strange because it's a response to a 4-year-old video. And I'll put a link to the video in the description, but this is a conversation ShowThatSux and I were having about 4 years ago, and I'm rewatching his response to me. And he brings up some points that, it's kind of funny how times change. In 4 years, I've come around to his way of thinking. In the video, title of the video is GNOME versus KDE, which is best. And that was back in 2010, which almost seems like a lifetime ago. But anyway, that was back before GNOME 2.x morphed into GNOME 3.x, and Ubuntu came out with its own desktop user interface, Unity. And at that time, I was something of a partisan of Ubuntu, and that was back in the days when Ubuntu's default desktop user interface was GNOME 2.x. I forget what, but it was a version of GNOME. Linux Mint was somewhat new on the scene, and well, just to let you know how times in between then and now. I was on active duty with the military at the time, and and later that year, when this was made, I deployed to Afghanistan. I deployed to Afghanistan with an Acer Aspire 1 netbook, and one of the things I did with that netbook was and this was fairly new, Ubuntu had what they called the Ubuntu Netbook Remix, and I installed that on the machine. And in that time, if you followed Ubuntu at all, you know that Ubuntu Netbook Remix is no more, and they've merged it into their base desktop operating system, and that Ubuntu Netbook Remix was the beginnings of the Unity interface that Ubuntu users have now. I wasn't a big fan of that interface. I'm still not a big fan of that interface. After about 2 months of using it, I changed it to just a regular Ubuntu distribution, which I forget what the name of it was at the time, but this was summer, fall. By the spring of 2011, I was running just whatever the current Ubuntu version was on that netbook. In the meantime, as things have evolved, and in this video, ShowThatSux talks about Linux Mint and how he really liked Linux Mint, especially for new Linux users. And I gotta say, I can't agree more. And Linux Mint is now what I run. I've come around, and a couple of reasons for that. I would probably still be on Ubuntu if they'd gone a different direction with their desktop. I understand. I've never played with it. I've never played with the distro that uses it, but I understand GNOME 3 is just a lot of people don't like it, and it's so different from what people were used to in the GNOME 2.x desktops that they just they just don't want to mess with it, and that's why I like Linux Mint. Now Linux Mint comes in a KDE desktop flavor, which I think part of that video, KDE, I've played with it. I just still can't get used to it. Maybe I just haven't messed with it enough. I mean, KDE looks pretty. It has a lot of slick widgets and gee whiz doodads and everything like that. And and that's fine if you're into that, but the way it approaches the user interface, I find it to not be intuitive, at least not intuitive as old school GNOME was. But what Linux Mint has done, they've got two other versions that are forks of the old, well, Mate is a fork of the old GNOME 2X, and Cinnamon, I believe, is a fork of GNOME 3X. I'm using Cinnamon on both my desktop and my laptop, and yeah, I really like it. If you've seen my reviews of it, you can. I explain how I like it. I find it to be configurable, and I can make it work the way I want my computer to work. Which I think, ShowThatSux, if you watch this, I think this is something I suspect you and I will agree on when it comes down to what's the best operating system, what's the best user environment in an operating system. It all comes down to the individual and what works best for an individual. So that's where I'm at. I know this response is about 4 years late, but I just thought I would address that. And YouTube land, what are your thoughts? What's your favorite operating system? If it's Linux, what's your favorite distro? Why is it your favorite distro? If your favorite distro is something like Ubuntu or Linux Mint that comes in various user interface flavors, what's your favorite user interface flavor? Why? I'd like to hear it. I'd like to know. So that's my response. Sorry it's so late, but appreciate everyone's time, and thanks for watching.